Rachel, when I'm working with the Australian curriculum, I'm really mindful of, what my big three are, kind of like non-negotiables and starting points. So for you, what are your big three challenges in using it for multi-age learning?
Well, my first would have to be sort of making a start with the knowledge that I have. So that could be finding out what the students need to learn, so what the achievement standards are, and going from there with the knowledge that I've got. My next biggest thing would knowing that I can sort of adapt as I go along. So if something isn't working out, if something's not going to plan, as that happens a lot, there's that opportunity to adapt as I go. And that also helps from reflections and by seeing the students' progress, so their learning. So in terms of reflection, and just an example is when in my classroom we'll do a reflection at the end of a lesson. This might be an exit card, or it might be the 3-2-1 strategy, and that gives the students the opportunity to voice sort of what they have learned, or what they're struggling with, what they hope to continue learning, and then that way that also gives me the opportunity to see what needs to change or needs to happen next. And if that's not what I had planned, then that's where that adapting comes into that as well. So an exit strategy is basically where I just give them a little card that is their ticket to recess or their ticket to lunch or something, and so I'll pose a question. It might be, tell me one thing that you learned or got out of this lesson that you did not know beforehand, or that you weren't sure about beforehand. And it's just another way of them to, I guess, they can write it down. They can then become more confident in doing that, rather than getting up in front of the class and saying, oh, look, I really struggled with, or I'm not understanding this, because once again, that could also be quite a sensitive area for them. They might not have that confidence to do that. So at least it's a way, and then therefore I've got also that hard copy.
Great evidence for you.
Great evidence, yeah. So it's there. I can, I don't have to retain that information in my head, like I can flick back to it. And the 3-2-1 strategy is similar, except for, I might say, okay, 3 things that you got out of this lesson. It might be what they have learnt, 2 things that you're still not sure about, and then it could be 1 thing that you hope that, you know about this, but you want to learn more, or, you hope 1 thing you hope to do next lesson. So that's the 3-2-1. And you can pose any questions depending on your class and the students that you've got. So,
and then importantly, you then respond to their exit pass information, or the 3-2-1 strategy.
Yes, absolutely. So that would be me adapting then and it also gives me a grasp of sort of these students might be ready to move on to the next step, whereas these students need to just go over perhaps the lesson we've just had, or and it's also really good to use when I'm beginning my next lessons. It's also really good for us to sort of reflect on the previous lesson again before we start off. It gives sort of those students who tend to sort of not necessarily retain that information or forget quickly, that sort of stuff. For me, the 3-2-1 strategy and exit card is a really simple strategy that can be used in any year level by any teacher, and basically it's hard evidence for me to then adapt my next lessons. And when you think about sort of the next lesson in terms of I may have, for example, say 15 students that grasp the topic and grasp the idea, and I may have, say, 5 or so students who have been sort of left behind or haven't exactly understand the the lesson or the concept. So another sort of strategy that I am now familiar with through a student free day that we had earlier on in the year, that has worked really well in the classroom, and that has been, so I've used those exit cards and those 3-2-1 strategies to then use this strategy in the classroom, and that's where I've had, say, mixed ability groups for their learning. So I could group my students with, say, 2 students, or say 1 student that is really excelling or has excelled in that lesson, so above benchmark, and I could have them with 2 students that have, you know, found it challenging but have grasped the idea or grasped the concept, and then I could have those 3 with 1 student who is below benchmark, so has sort of not understood the content or etc. So I'm then, for the next lesson, I'm then adapting that lesson to basically benefit all students and have them working in mixed ability groups, so I can have the students that are working above benchmark work with those that are sort of on par, so working at benchmark, and then those students can help that particular student that is below and pull them up. And obviously having small groups around the classroom, I can then intervene and sort of pose questions for the students who are understanding to then help the ones that sort of are needing that extra help. And those comments help me in terms of who will work best with who, and who is going to benefit from the other student help and the peer help as well.
Plus, what advice you would give to someone who is actually concerned about delivering Australian curriculum entitlements in a multi-year level classroom?
Basically, for any concerns, my biggest thing is sort of communicating with, whether it's my colleagues or other staff within the school, and not being afraid to ask questions and not feeling as though you're silly, especially with the new Australian curriculum. You know, everyone's in the same boat, and everyone, you know, majority of the people may be feeling the same as you, so they may have the same, or same as me, they may have the same concerns. So that sort of that conversational aspect's really good.
Is there, you know, any other tool that you happen to use yourself with Australian curriculum that you would also promote with them?
I have got the Australian Curriculum app on my phone, which is really handy. It's very practical, and obviously, like if you don't have your computer there, or you don't have access to the internet on your computer, you've always got your phone, and I find that helps me a lot, and it's very simple to use, so that's another resource, and obviously the website as well, and the internet